Welcome to the ATP project. You're with your host, Steve and Nicole.
Yeah.
You're back. Now,
I'm back.
Nick,
Yes.
you're not just back for one. You're not just back for two. Tell us what's going
I'm back
on.
for good. Yeah, I know. I know. Everyone is very
As the song
excited
goes.
about that. What's the song?
I want you back. I
Oh.
want you back. I want you back.
Yeah,
I
don't
should
know.
bring my guitar. I haven't done
Don't
that
know
for
that.
ages.
I didn't never. heard that song.
It's I can't remember who sings it, but I'm old, so it's probably an old song. Oh, it's not that old, that song. Someone's going to tell us what it is.
Oh, maybe you just needed the guitar accompaniment.
Absolutely, I do. Hey, we're talking about natural medicine today and naturopathy. The way I paid for my naturopathy course was I was a busker in the streets of Surfers Paradise.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's high end, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Look, high end is a great way. It's like, real.
Yeah, like a real job.
Yeah, like I used to work there until it started getting light, then I'd go home.
Oh, is
So
that
about
right?
4 or 5 in the morning.
Nice.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
nice.
that is-
How many times can you play American Pie in one night? I think I've broken a world record for that.
How much did you get paid by the end of the night? That'll tell you whether people wanted to hear
I
it.
used to try and get, for Friday, Saturday nights, I'd try and get $300. And that was in the 90s. And that would be my goal. And I'd usually, go over that a bit. During Indy, when they used to have Indy on the Gold Coast, I'd make a lot more. But, you've got to remember, I'd do about 5 hours a night. So, I was on a pretty good wicket back in those days, cash in hand.
And did you do it clothes on or clothes off? Because there's a guy in New York called the Naked Cowboy, walks around with the guitar singing, and he makes a fortune.
Hang on. You said naked?
Well, I would say he's probably not entirely naked. I think he wears undies.
He did wears undies.
Wears pants.
Yeah?
apparently, yeah.
How do you know about the Naked Cowboy?
Oh, someone told me he was.
No. I know about the meter maids on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, the meter maids, yes. Well, they don't, I don't think they're around anymore. Are
I
they?
don't know either.
No.
I don't want to say either way because
I feel like that might be a no on that one.
Yeah, because you go to the meters, you don't put coins in much in. We just
Because
tap
what did
your
they used to
phone.
do? They used to actually put the money in for you.
Yeah. Good service.
I
these
never
days.
knew what that was about, but
Oh. Look, if you've got the genes for, you're looking good in genes, like your genes, you're genetically gifted, you can do those sort of jobs.
well, that's right. And funny that you say that.
Funny I say what?
Oh, genes.
Genes.
Yeah. Because you know what? We're going to talk about genes today.
Levi's, Strauss.
We could talk about them too, but I think people might be more interested in genetic testing.
Oh, genes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Your
it's in the
genes,
genes
not
in
your
the
genes.
body.
Your genes that are in
So
you, not your genes that
I was
are on
going
you.
to break in the song that I used to busk in.
You were lucky we
my blue
Oh,
jeans.
no, he's doing it anyway. Sorry, everybody. I can't
It's
stop
not
him.
those jeans, is it?
It's not those genes.
Now, those
no.
are the jeans.
Yes.
We got 23 pairs of them.
We do.
Got 22 normals and one sex pair.
Yes.
Mine's a XY. Yours is XX.
That's right.
Men and women are different.
We are.
That's surprising, isn't it?
It is surprising.
It's politically incorrect to say that these days.
That is
isn't it?
true. Yes, that's
Different.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So genes out now. We've all got them,
We do.
and we've got we've got all these different varieties of these genes, and it all comes from 4 pairs of base pairs. Then that's
does.
where all the genes come from.
That's right. Only 4 base pairs, and that can be in millions of different combinations. But how funny is that? You've got 4 peptides essentially, and they can be, in any combination.
Yep.
And that can dictate what you're going to look like, how tall you're going to be, that sort of thing. But the funny thing around that, did you know that 99% of our genes are all identical for every human?
Yeah.
And it's only less than 1% that actually creates our appearance,
Wow.
whether we're more susceptible to disease,
Yep.
mutations, things like that. So less than 1% of our genes are what causes all of these changes.
Amazing. So like less than 1% between you and I.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one. You remember our cousins, the monkeys?
Yes.
We're bipedal apes, and we are 98.8% the same as them genetically.
There you go.
Freaky, isn't
That
it?
explains a couple of my ex-boyfriends. But we won't go there.
Oh, no. Oh, well, no, there's probably not.
So let's go. And what was the next topic?
What's the next topic? Quick.
Quick, get on to it.
No, look, the gene's great because, it's only been 20 years since we've known the gene. So to tell us about the mapping, which is what we refer to as the human genome.
Well, the Human Genome Project, I'm sure a lot of people might have heard about that. That was basically where we started when they mapped our genome and discovered everything that was in there. And that was completed in 2003.
I remember it.
Yeah.
That's how old I am.
Well, there you go.
Actually, I was old.
You would have been
34
I was
then.
going to say you would have been well and truly into
pretty
middle
old
age
then.
by then, Steve.
I still remember Y2K.
I remember Y2K as well.
That was the year 2000.
That was hilarious. That was whenever the world was going to implode, wasn't
Absolutely.
And then that was the biggest anticlimax of ever.
Nothing happened.
No, 12:01 and everyone's just sitting there waiting for the big boom and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
No.
But in 2003, we mapped the human genome.
We did.
How cool is that?
That's very
So today we're going to be talking about the human genome, not boring you with facts and figures like we probably just have a bit, but we're going to talk about weird genes in the body, like genes that can increase your physical performance and genes that can program you to get the most awful diseases. And from genes that change your mental status to genes that increase your risk of cancer and Alzheimer's and all this sort of stuff. And do we genetically test? Because that's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
You know, how much do we want to know? Everyone, you can get a gene test now from 24 and 23andMe. 23 means the number of gene pairs we've got. Monkeys have 24.
Yes, let's remember that.
Yeah. And then gene 2 is, if you look at gene 2 in the human, you can see it's got 2 ends to it and it's sort of joined together like that. And that's the difference really
Exactly.
between us and the great apes.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, my chest hair looks like I'm still a great apey. But anyway, we won't go there, please.
We won't go there.
But look, so we've got all these genes and all these genes pairs. Now, and what we're going to talk about today is different types of gene. And probably I'd like to start off with one that we all probably know about, which is the MTHFR, the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase gene.
That one,
Because a lot of people know about that one and know that it encodes something to do with folic acid, as the F part means. So do you want to talk about, you know, from a clinician point of view, what when you would look at that, or if you'd look at that, and do you bother with that?
It's funny. There's there's two schools of thought in natural medicine. I think initially when we started to learn about the MTHFR gene, that everyone was testing for it, and that was the be-all and end-all. If you had that mutation, then that's going to solve all your problems because now we know what's going on. That's not really the case.
No.
There's a lot more to it than that. But I will test that occasionally. I will test it in sometimes if I have clients that have sort of mood imbalances, so anxiety, depression, that type of thing, hormonal imbalances, those sorts of things. I will have a look at their MTHFR gene to see if there is any mutations or polymorphisms, as sometimes we say.
I have never tested for it, but I know my mother and my grandmother have super high homocysteine in the body, which is a toxic amino acid.
It is.
My mum's was, and she's still around. She's 80. She won't mind me telling you this. Too bad if she does. That she's on methyl donors now, and her homocysteine is down now to healthy levels.
Yeah,
Incredible.
So if your homocysteine levels get too high, then you're at greater risk of cardiovascular injury, that type of thing. So, yeah, that is another reason. And look, I always do homocysteine testing on bloods. And if I find that comes back high, we can look at MTHFR. We can maybe just give some activated Bs just to see if that brings it down initially. But, yeah, that can be important when we're looking at cardiovascular health.
It's a really good question because I was going to test my mum for MTHFR, but I thought, what difference does it make? Because I thought, well, no, I'll just buy her some supplements.
Yeah.
And it's dropped. And her doctor is pretty cool because my history, my grandmother on my mother's side had terrible Alzheimer's disease. And I remember just before her death, her homocysteine levels were 48.
Oh, my goodness.
Because it was like it was incredibly high.
Wow. Well, putting that in perspective, that ideally you want your homocysteine levels to be under 10.
Yeah.
So 48 is very high.
Yeah, my mother's was 19 when she had it tested, and she's a healthy woman.
Yeah.
But she'd had a heart attack and a mild one. Flew down to Melbourne. It was about 10 years ago now, and she's now 80 and fine.
Yeah.
Homocysteine levels were tested then, and it dropped by, I think it's under 10 now. It's like 8 or something from 19.
Wow.
So the question is, from a genetic point of view, do we bother testing her? And I in this case, said no, because it's like, well, I'm going to treat her anyway, the same thing.
Well, that's exactly right. You give them activated Bs or methylated Bs, and you just watch the homocysteine. And we will talk about do we test and don't we test in these situations. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the gene. And if they have that polymorphism, then they're going to hedge all their bets around that that's what it is, when it's not. There's a lot more to it. So, yeah, that we will talk about whether we do, whether we don't. Yeah,
because you can't change genes. You can change the Levi genes, but you can't change the other genes.
That's right.
I mean, it's just so the really is an interesting question is, do we bother testing? It's funny. We were talking to a gentleman in sales out there before, probably about half an hour ago.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, you're doing a podcast?" They just being polite and come over and say good day to you. And he's like saying, "Oh, I've got a." I won't mention any names, but he's got an uncle that had severe Alzheimer's disease, which is a terrible brain disorder that, my grandmother was horrendously affected with, where you basically lose your memory. For those who don't know, I think most people know what that is. And there is a gene that codes for that called the apolipoprotein E4 gene. And if you are positive for that gene, then you're much more likely to get Alzheimer's and heart disease and all these other things.
That's right.
So we were discussing with him, should you test for that? Now let's say, like, he's about in his 30s, this gentleman in sales, and he's related to the person. So would he bother getting tested? So it comes down to, like, does he want to know if he's got a higher risk of getting Alzheimer's or not? So it's like, now I would say yes and no, depending. Like if there was a drug or a supplement out there now that could stop you getting Alzheimer's, whatever that is, drug, whatever, I would test for it.
Yeah.
Because I go, but it doesn't treat it, it only prevents you from getting it. Then I go, all right, I would consider taking that nutrient supplement, whatever it is, even if it's expensive, but I'd weigh up the side effects if it's a drug, and you could prevent Alzheimer's disease if there was such a drug. There isn't.
Yes.
But, we can mitigate the effects of Alzheimer's disease. It actually is called type 3 diabetes sometimes. Yeah. So it's very related to sugars.
Yep.
So
definitely.
Stop eating your sugars. You and I don't eat sugars, but
yeah. And then that is that there's still that lifestyle factor that comes into play around that. So even there are some diseases, genetic diseases, that if you have those genes, you will get that disease. There is no question. That's not common, but it does happen. But a lot of these other propensities does not mean that you're going to get it.
No.
So therein lies the question, do I test and then, okay, maybe I can do something about it, or do I test and I can't do anything about it, or do I test and then convince myself that I'm going to get the disease and then end up that way because I know that I have that propensity. So there is a lot of questions around whether you should do it or not.
Oh, absolutely. And it can also help with a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I've used my own story here. I've talked about this on camera before. When I was 20, I ended up in hospital with incredible bad back pain. And my foot swelled up and my wrist swelled up. My weird symptoms. No, I hadn't hurt my back or done anything weird. It was just an immense pain. Went to hospital, had the x-rays, went to the Sandringham Hospital in Melbourne. So this was about 34 years ago. Had incredible bad back pain. And it's like, x-rays, fine, nothing wrong.
Yep.
So they said, oh, well, we're going to discharge you today because, I was in immense pain. So they said, have a shower and we'll let you out. And, of course, while I was in the shower, because of the pain, I passed out.
Oh, wow.
So I was peeling off the floor by all these female nurses, which was really good fun when you're 20 years old.
And unconscious.
Unconscious on the floor with the shower on. I had to press, there's a buzzer in there.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So what it does is unlock the shower and people can have access to you. So that was the email. I still got discharged, but I couldn't walk because I was in a wheelchair.
Okay.
And thinking back and I'm thinking, but they just, you got to remember you're 20-year-old. Why have you got a bad back? We've x-rayed it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Bugger off.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got really sick that night and it just got worse and worse very quickly. I ended up in the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, the main hospital there. And to help diagnose me, they did a test on me, and it was called the DNA test called the human leukocyte antigen B27 test, and it came back positive. Now, that means that if you've got that gene, it's only 3 to 5% of the population have it, a little bit more in the Asians, then you've got a high propensity to developing a type of spinal arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis. And, of course, you pair that with more genes that come from Klebsiella, which I was positive for as well. And therefore I could find out what was causing my condition. Great thing is there was no treatment for it back in those days.
Great.
So just painkillers and anti-inflammatories.
Yes.
But that's a way you can use genes to help diagnose a disease. If you they knew about that in the 90s.
Funny you mentioned Klebsiella.
Yes.
So you can look at that with genes as well, because obviously high Klebsiella is associated with ankylosing spondylitis. I have had...
Now you tell me.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. If only I told you 30 years ago.
34 years ago.
34 years ago. I did a gut microbiome test on myself last year, and my Klebsiella levels were very high.
Wow.
But I don't have that gene that will give me propensity towards ankylosing spondylitis. So it didn't have any effect on me. So there is sort of that thing where you look at, well, that's what the gene can do. So, I find that really interesting. So just because you have a gene doesn't mean you are going to get the condition. But if you have, some people go, well, I've got this gene polymorphism and I have this and this is what's created it, then someone's listening to that going, well, oh my God, I have had that, but they don't understand it because they don't have the gene picture, that they're not going to get that condition. So it's very interesting how that slight gene change can create a whole condition.
It sort of ruled my life.
Yeah.
And you got to remember this HLA-B27, everyone thinks this thing's terrible, but there's studies showing that if you're HLA-B27 positive, you've got a much lower risk of developing AIDS. And it's like, huh. Okay. So there's been books written, one's called Dirty Genes, but it's a little bit misleading because like that gene was bad for me. I hate it, right? Because it propends me to this type of autoimmune disease. But if I lived in South Africa in the 80s, where the AIDS epidemic was flying through it, the late 80s everyone was getting it, males, females back then, it wasn't just a homosexual thing, then you may have survived that period if you had the HLA-B27.
Yeah.
So it's not like, and even the MTHFR gene, there's studies showing that you actually have a greater physical strength on that gene. So, all right, you and I don't need physical strength, although you go to the gym a lot more and I go to the gym too. But it's sort of like would be great for that. But what if you were a hunter and gatherer?
That's right.
I'd want that gene.
Yeah.
Because then I could fight off the animal or I could fight off the enemy.
Yeah. Yes, but that's true. Some gene mutations can actually be protective for a lot of things. So they're not all bad.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's because if from an evolutionary point of view, these genes have made it through the evolutionary pinch, which, in the last, when we came from the greater apes, it was about 6 million years ago. And our first Homo erectus was about 3.5 million years ago. So through all that evolutionary of millions of different transitions through genes, the genes we've got now have, if there was a gene that said, screw you, you're dead at 10, then that gene would be wiped out.
That's right.
Okay, so it's like the old sort of scenario where you've got a virus, for example, which is a genetic code, can be an RNA or DNA virus. If it killed you instantly, that virus would no longer exist because you'd get it, die. I'd get it, die. Matt gets it, dies. Matt's behind the camera. And then no one gets out of the room. And then someone's a bit sus and says, why are they all dead? Oh, it could be something bad. So the virus wouldn't survive. But if you've got a gene or a DNA virus or anything that can replicate inside the human being and doesn't cause too much discomfort to the host, then the host can go out and spread it.
That's right.
Because the host feels fine. The host goes out, kisses husband, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives at home and spreads it to, everyone. Yeah. So, we see these vectors, we call them vectors, DNA and RNA vectors, as being something terrible. But, these genes like HLA-B27 for me is a bad one, but it could have been a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of these other weirdo genes that have a double-edged sword to them. Now, we want to talk about catecholomethyltransferase.
Catecholomethyltransferase, yes.
Can we call it
COMT genes, probably easier. Yeah, so that's a fairly common one that we look at in clinic.
Yeah.
So, as far as gene testing, which we will get to, do we do that? What do we do gene testing for, that type of thing? But COMT gene, we do test, I use the Dutch test a lot, and that's for looking at the hormonal picture and, how we're producing hormones, how we're metabolizing them, how we're detoxifying them, all the pathways. So the COMT gene is on that. So we look at that quite often. So, when there's women that maybe have issues with their estrogen, so if they're not metabolizing and detoxifying their estrogen effectively, we look at their COMT, whether they have maybe a fast COMT or a slow COMT. There can be mental health issues around that as well, anxiety, those types of things. So that's a very common one that we test for. So, and we have got a little
Oh, we've got a graph
diagram
there. We
here
can put up,
that Matt can put up.
So let's say, I'm a woman and I have got a slow compt.
You've got a slow compt.
So
Yeah.
what sort of symptoms would I be associated with?
So if you had a slow compt, you could have something like anxiety, panic attacks, that type of thing. You could have heavy periods, clotty periods, that type of thing as well, thyroid factors. So that's something that can show up with a slow compt. If you've got a fast compt, something, can have things like hot flushes. So that you're thinking fast comp means that you're detoxifying your estrogen way too fast. So you're not getting the benefits of it. So you'd have a lot of symptoms that say postmenopausal or perimenopausal women would have hot flushes, things like that for that estrogen deficiency. So there's some of the things that we can look at.
It gets worse than that too. You can get dementias and strokes and all sorts of things.
You can, yes. Well, you look at all the conditions that are more common postmenopausally. They're all the conditions that are related to low estrogen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but they're acceptable when you're postmenopausal apparently. But when you're still cycling and you have low estrogen, then that's the problem.
Isn't it amazing how there's usually in medicine and the way people think it's a black and white thing. Do I want more of this or less of this? And it's like, no, you want to be balanced.
That's right.
And this is a great example of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the old vitamin, a little bit's good, a lot more must be better. And you can run into problems like that. We've talked about that in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
Too much of something, too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like everything in life. You don't want too much of anything. Water's good for you. You keep drinking water, you'll die.
Yeah, get water toxicity.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just Beck keeps saying to me that she can't get too much of me though. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, she's not
got
too much Steve toxicity at this point. So.
I can't even say it with a straight face. I can't even. Oh, jeez.
All right.
No, too much. Oh, boy. Yeah, too much of that.
But that's a fairly common one that we look at, and that's that can be beneficial to look at because to help to improve your compt can be very simple. By adding one particular nutrient can be really helpful, which we all take a lot of. It's magnesium.
Magnesium.
Yeah.
Right.
So things like that can be so simple and so helpful, and all that's come from looking at your comp genes. So
isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Magnesium's the great regulator of other things too in the body. We know that magnesium is a calcium channel blocker, so it regulates calcium going into cells. When your calcium goes into a cell, it activates it.
Yeah.
So, magnesium, the great magnesium, and how many of us are deficient in magnesium?
So many. It's very easily depleted.
Very easy.
Stress will deplete it. How many people are stressed these days?
Oh, yeah, and also green vegetables and nuts are great sources, and no one eats them.
No.
Especially in Australia.
No, that's
especially Australian men. They're the biggest bunch of crazy, terrible eaters there are.
Mean potatoes.
We're terrible. I remember talking to guys about it. It's like, are you serious? And it's like, it's also regulates blood pressure. So magnesium has just got this amazing effect in the body.
Over 400 enzymatic functions in the body it performs. So
we did a massive podcast on it and all the different forms of it. There's a
lot of forms, yeah.
And it's like, some are good, some are bad, but some are good for this person, some are bad for others. And it's all coming down to the genes. And there is a saying, Hippocrates said, this is one man's food to another man's poison, or woman's poison.
Yeah, persons.
We've got to be politically correct these days.
Yeah.
But isn't it amazing that it's absolutely true?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not eating enough of this stuff, green stuff, you're going to have low magnesium.
That's right.
And nuts, remember nuts were demonized?
Yeah.
You're not that old.
No.
But you must remember the days where fat was evil.
I'm not that old. No, I'm not that old, Steve.
You're 24. I keep
24.
Is it 3 or 4? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but nuts were like super high in calories and everyone avoided them like the plague.
Yeah.
And then we were dodging magnesium. I mean, how nuts is that?
That is very nuts.
Very nuts.
Speaking of nuts.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of nuts.
Crazy.
I'm not eating nuts at the moment, Steve.
Oh,
temporarily.
Yeah, now this is fascinating. Because nuts are good for you. I've just told you how good they are.
They are.
And you're not eating nuts. Why are you not eating nuts?
Because for me at the moment, nuts are actually having a negative effect because I'm having issues with histamines.
Histamine. Now, histamine is a chemical that most people have heard of antihistamines because if you get an allergy, it degranulates mast cells, releases mucus.
Yep.
This is where histamine, we've heard of that. But tell us about your story with histamine.
So histamines, I've just discovered my histamine issue, funnily enough. But I think I've had histamine issues even when I was younger.
Wow.
But since I had COVID, I've had extreme histamine intolerance.
Wow.
So I've had to take out all my histamine foods as part of my sort of treatment until I can get everything under control. But then there is also a gene called the histamine N-methyltransferase gene.
Wow.
Yes, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
That you can test to see whether you are someone that can break down histamines effectively or not. And so I'm someone that can't.
Right.
So, that just means that if I get basically infections or anything that's going to activate my immune system and increase my mast cell degranulation, which is going to take, shoot out things like histamines, prostaglandins, I'm going to have more issues with that. My body won't be able to break them down. So therefore, testing for that gene can mean that I know when I need to be a bit more careful around what's going to create a histamine intolerance and careful about what I take in and my lifestyle and things like that. So there's another positive as far as looking at gene testing, because I can do something about that.
You can.
Yeah.
You can modify your diet around it. And for me personally, I buy nuts by the kilogram, literally. I get 3 pounds, which is about 1.2 kilos for the young ones like yourself in the audience.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I get them from, Costco and they're mixed nuts, and I can eat them till the cows come have no problems whatsoever. But one man's food's another woman's poison.
That's right.
So if you had that many nuts, what happened? What would be your symptoms?
Oh, well, see, my symptoms are things like heart palpitations, racing heart. I get dizziness, blood pressure issues, swelling. Yeah, so I get sort of more of the more obscure symptoms the more you run your nose and your allergies. I don't get allergies.
No.
Like, that sort of thing, but I get a lot of these other symptoms. So if I ate a lot of nuts, that would happen.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Because they're super duper healthy for most people, but not for others.
Yeah.
I know someone who will eat peanuts and they die.
Wow.
So there you go.
My stepdad used to live on peanuts and beer, he said. Don't need anything else.
Beer nuts?
All the food
Was it the beer nuts?
Maybe beer nuts. I don't know. They're different to they're the ones in the skins.
Yeah.
Yeah, beer nuts, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, beer and peanuts. So that's how I grew up, my knowledge of nutrition. Beer and peanuts, and you'd be right forever.
And if you had beer nuts, that's like, that's
even like,
because they're in the green packets. I mentioned the brand, but they come in the green. The other ones come in the blue. I didn't know there was
a distinction between normal peanuts and beer nuts.
Oh, yeah, they've got the skin on it with the resveratrol. Right. Really good for men.
Yeah, right.
Because resveratrol's an aromatase inhibitor, and that's genetically controlled aromatase. You've got loads more of that than I do because you're a chick.
I am a chick.
And you can take that testosterone that you make and turn it into estrogen really easily.
Yeah.
I've got a lazy gene, does a little bit of it, but I stick with testosterone.
Yeah.
Women are more refined than men.
That's right.
So that's genetically controlled.
Yes.
It's on the X chromosomes. In the X chromosomes, I've got one, but you've got two.
I've got two. I've got twice as good as you, Steve. It's a high achiever I am.
Oh, jeez. Well, having two X chromosomes is linked with longevity too.
That's right.
Because who lives longer, men or women?
Women. Yeah, that's right. They
also have better immune system because a lot of the immune genes are on the X chromosome.
That's right.
Now, I've got a bit of it.
Yeah.
Not one of them.
Yeah.
But then we've got this syndrome called fragile. It's another genetic disease called Fragile X syndrome, which is where one of the genes played. Now, if I had Fragile X syndrome, it would be way worse for me than it would be for you because I've got only one X chromosome, you got two.
That's right.
And women have a greater propensity not only to longevity, but much less disease processes, and that's largely due to the genes of a woman.
Yeah, that's right.
We did a podcast this one about 6 months ago, and over the ages, as the life expectancy between men and women has always been about 4 to 5 years apart, all since the 1800s, all the way through, and that's largely due to the genes. Incredible.
Yeah, because women, what is it? They say women we're sort of responsible for the survival of the species.
Yeah,
basically.
Just talk yourself up a bit.
Well, just a small responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we play a small part in that.
Well, that's true. I mean, I haven't played any part in it myself. I haven't had children, so I'm pretty useless in that regard.
Oh, we both failed.
Both of us, we both failed miserably.
It's terrible, isn't it?
But most women, yes, responsible for the survival of species. We give birth. We create life. Yes, men do have a role in that.
Very small
role. Very small
small role.
Yeah, that's right.
Just I won't detail that in this podcast.
Yes.
We're looking for another topic as we change the topic.
Change the subject.
All right, so there is one gene that women don't want to get,
Yeah.
And that's called the BRCA gene, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it? Now, what's BRCA? What are we talking about? Not talking about brackets. We're talking about BRCA.
Yeah, so that's the breast cancer gene.
Yeah, BRCA, breast cancer.
1 and 2.
Yeah,
BRCA 1 and 2. So that was made famous by people like Angelina Jolie.
What happened to her?
She had a double mastectomy.
Oh.
So again, that comes back to, do you test? Do you not? She knew she had the gene. She decided to take precaution. So she didn't get the breast cancer. Just because you have the gene doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the disease.
That fascinates me. That really fascinates me. You've got the BRCA gene, and about 85% of women will go develop some sort of cancer, but 15% won't.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, that's right.
Isn't that the mystery?
It is a mystery. And if you are destined to get breast cancer, if you have that gene, then why is there 15% of people that are not?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Now, we know, yes, genes are associated with breast cancer, but also being obese.
Yes.
Inactive, eating badly, high sugar carbohydrate diet are all risk factors for breast cancer.
That's right. Lifestyle factors.
Yeah.
You're comped as well.
You're comped,
Genes not working well. You're building up your estrogen, not metabolizing it and detoxifying it.
Yeah. One of the things it says on there, promotes cancers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's like we walk a fine line about do we test for that or not. So how do you feel about it? Can I ask if you've been tested for that?
I haven't been tested for that. I have had genetic testing though. Yes, but I haven't been tested for any health conditions. I have a fairly good family history of pretty good health. We don't have any sort of deadly diseases that have come up. I have been tested for my ethnicity though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's another way to look at genes, isn't it?
Yes, it is another way. And then that comes back to ethics as well, because I heard something yesterday about how the company that you test with, they can take your data and use it however they please. So there's a whole nother issue, ethical issue or moral issue. What do they do with the data that they've taken? The only reason I did it is because I was continually asked if I was, what my nationality was. Generally Italian. I kept getting asked if I was Italian.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, because on my dad's side, there's not a lot of information past my dad.
Okay.
So that's why I did it.
And I know your ethnicity, but
yes.
do you want to tell everyone, because it's really interesting. It's genetic testing.
It is genetic testing. So I came back German, which I knew that part because my grandmother's German.
Yep.
So I did come back with German, and I'll tell you a funny thing about genetics as well. German, a little bit of Scandinavian is a big one as well.
That.
Yeah, Scandinavian, the darker skin, I suppose. A little bit of, I think we talked about the convict blood yes, in one of our other podcasts. So a little bit of that English and that sort of thing on my mum's side. But yeah, German and Scandinavian predominantly. So no Italian whatsoever. No. I was very disappointed.
Yeah.
I was gunning for Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really was like.
You could pass the Spanish.
I thought I could probably pull it off. Yeah,
Hola,
but there was
¿cómo
nothing
está?
there. Yeah, that. Yeah.
That's about my whole Spanish.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't bother with that because I know we're all convicts and, my dad's side English, so very boring genes for me. But my mum's side's, super convict. So just watch your phone and glasses.
Yeah, just making sure I'm keeping everything out of reach.
yeah. But look, I mean, the BRCA gene, all right, breast cancer and Angelina Jolie, but also is predicts ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be starting lopping pieces off, this is another ethical issue. Let's assume woman A has tested for BRCA and she's positive for 1 and 2, and she goes, I'm having a double mastectomy at the age of 20, let's say. Does she also have a hysterectomy?
That's right.
Because ovarian cancer is pretty dangerous.
Very, and that's one of the silent killers because you don't get symptoms primarily.
Once you've diagnosed, you very often pass away. Yeah. It's one of the more deadly cancers. Pancreatic cancer, I think, just pips it as being the deadly one. Yeah. But I mean, so do you test? I mean, you obviously haven't, but let's put a hypothetical in there. We've got a 20-year-old woman who doesn't know much about her history. Let's say she was adopted. Would you recommend she goes and have a test for all these things just to see whether she's at higher risk of these diseases? I'm talking, let's say she's got all the money in the world. She can test for anything. Where do you draw the line, or what do you invest the money?
Well, that's it. And, I would never tell anyone whether to get gene testing or not. Obviously, COMT and things like that is a little bit different. But when we're looking at, diseases that can cause death, it's a very hard decision. And, I guess if I was adopted, I would myself probably want to know my health history so I could do something about it if I am showing genes that you can do something about, that don't just definitely, mean you're going to get that disease. Yeah. I would do it myself.
Okay.
But some people don't want to know.
No.
Yeah, and it comes down to that, I guess, and we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
If you do the testing and then you have this propensity for these diseases, do you then worry and stress for half of your life and then end up creating the disease because you've created the environment where the gene will then mutate and then get the disease? So you've sort of created by knowing about it, or if you don't test and you don't know about it, would you then end up getting that disease in the long run anyway? Who would know?
I know. Let's say I want to test for apolipoprotein E4 gene that codes for Alzheimer's and heart disease, and I'm positive for the E4 gene. I go, oh my God, I am going to be stressed for the rest of my life because I could have a heart attack any second. And what would I do? Would I take out life insurance? Would I be allowed to take out life insurance?
That's right. Would you be allowed to take
about
out?
That?
That's exactly right. There's something that someone brought up that we hadn't thought of straight off the bat. But yes, it can affect life insurance if you've got a potential deadly disease.
Well, it is, I don't know anything about insurance, but I believe there's things in there saying, have you got any pre-existing diseases?
Yeah, so there's that factor as well.
And you sort of have and you haven't. It's like the old saying about heart disease is that it's not that it runs in the family, it's that you don't run in the family.
That's right.
You don't
run in the family.
Nobody runs in the family.
That's right.
It's a classic saying because running is great for your heart because it's a cardiovascular. So should you put your efforts into, not testing, but actually improving your life? And let's say you're positive for that gene. What do? You're still going to improve your life.
That's right. And you're probably more likely to improve your life knowing you've got the gene, so you could bypass the...
Could be motivational.
Well, it could be motivational.
So it's a tricky one, isn't it? There's no right or wrong answer.
No.
But I mean, what do you do? I mean, for me, I've had that HLA-B27 test. It's funny. I've got a story about this. This was tested in hospital. And, they said, we did a test and we now know it's this disease that I couldn't pronounce at the time, ankylosing spondylitis, but learned to pronounce over the years. And I go, is that good or bad? I remember the guy going, well, it's not good and it's not bad. And I'm going, he said, the good news, the good and bad news.
Yes.
He said, the good news is we know what it is, but the bad news is it's quite a bad disease.
Right.
and so what do you mean bad disease? He goes, it's a pretty, it's an arthritis, so there's no cure. And, you're basically screwed, but by about 40, we may have to intervene because you end up in a wheelchair and hunched over and all that sort of crap, which you don't have to be.
No. And that doesn't mean that you don't have the gene now. You still have the gene. You just aren't expressing that gene.
I had to get something signed on my form to say I've got a musculoskeletal disorder because then I get $250 back for my gym membership every year from my health fund. And so I've got to have a musculoskeletal disorder.
Yes.
And I was talking to
hopefully no one from the health fund's watching now.
I've got a legit one. I've got a legit one. Absolute legit one. But it's not the one you think.
Yeah.
So I had an MRI of my spine because I was getting headaches and all this sort of stuff. And to find out, I had this MRI of my entire spine. And I found these conditions in my spine, but they don't affect me.
That's right.
No evidence of ankylosing spondylitis.
That's right.
None.
And there's an example of how lifestyle can sort of alleviate the actual expression of that disease in some people. And obviously we're not saying that.
No, not everyone.
Not everyone, but there's definitely a lot you can do. And that's why we're saying a lot of these genes that come up, they're not a death sentence at all.
I know, and when it was bad news when I found this out because it's your spine slowly fuses, and eventually, if you listen to this, you can Google a photo of ankylosing spondylitis. You see a guy all hunched over. There'll be someone all hunched over. Now I'm 54 now. I have no arthritis.
No,
I don't have any AS thing. This scan that I had, it found I had sort of bulging disc here and something else in the facet joint here. So I definitely do have a musculoskeletal disorder that can be legitimately, so I'm not doing any fraud, but it's not AS.
Yes.
And my sacroiliac joint's where the AS really attacks. And because my back was so sore, it was in the like the buttocks area, the sacroiliac joints, and that's where the AS attacks. And so I would sit up against something and push into there because it sort of gave it some relief. The pressure would help it. And I don't get any of that pain anymore. And on the MRI, I looked. The sacroiliac joints are perfect.
There you go.
I don't have anything
Nothing.
you wouldn't know. And my doctor said, well, you probably didn't have AS. And so, but and then retested for HLA-B27, still positive.
There. Yeah.
Still positive. And it's sort of like, I hope Medicare doesn't mind me doing these tests. That are, you know, how often do you do a genetic test?
Yeah.
But she said, no, it's good to have it on your record and all this sort of stuff. So you know, just to complete your history. And it's like, I'm glad you said history. It's not a current thing. So even if you gene test for something, it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
No, that's right. Yeah,
incredible, isn't it?
It is.
I was, you know, so yes, I do have a bulging disc at L5, but I don't have any pain from that because I exercise.
Yes.
So again, you know, it's not so much this podcast, but even just testing someone, you'll find something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Nobody has perfect genes.
No.
Nobody.
No.
We've all got something, but that doesn't mean that it's defective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, you know, if you have had some bad news like I had, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it. Now, does it mean you're not acting on it? And this is where the Angelina Jolie thing came in. She decided to have – now, what we also know at the BRCA gene now is it encodes for melanoma.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
No. The BRCA gene too, it encodes for melanoma. So, I mean, you know, it's really quite interesting because what does she do? Remove all her skin?
Well, that's right. How far where do you stop?
Where do you stop?
Yeah.
Breasts, look, they can be rebuilt.
Yeah. But then again, I guess you're looking at implants and there's a whole other issue with that.
Oh, we've done a podcast on that too.
Done a few podcasts
on Asia syndrome.
So what's the better of two evils in those?
It's so tricky.
And it's such a personal decision and choice to try to.
I'm going to read out the diseases that are associated with this, and this is published in the US National Library of Medicine. It's called BRCA1 and BRCA2 associated hereditary breast and ovarian cancer. That's the name of the paper, 2023. And it says it's associated with breast and ovarian cancer, increased risk for female and male breast cancer, ovarian cancer, including fallopian tube and primary periodontal cancers. A lesser extent, other cancer like prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, melanoma, primarily with the BRCA2. So there's a lot of cancers.
There's a lot of cancers.
Now, if you are burdened with that, so let's say you had that test and you go, by the way, you've got all these risks of all these other cancers, even if you're a bloke, breast cancer, but prostate cancer.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you know, I've got a prostate. I don't want it to get cancer.
Yeah.
It's one of the most common cancers in men.
Yeah.
Very commonly, it's one of those diagnoses where you often die with cancer, not of that cancer.
That's right.
But it can spread to the bones and kill you. It kills a lot of men.
Yeah, saying that, my grandfather had prostate cancer, but that's not what killed him. Old age killed him.
Right.
But the prostate.
Did he live till 108?
No, that was his dad.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe if he didn't have prostate cancer, he might have lived till he was 108.
Amazing.
But that didn't kill him.
No.
The prostate cancer. So yes, but yeah, that's very interesting. So where do you stop?
Where do you stop?
Yeah.
I mean, my when my mother had a heart attack about 7 or 8 years ago, I talked to my doctor about it. And I said, look, my dad, my mum, all my grandparents have had heart attacks. Some have died of it, some have lived through it. And they said, oh, look, we'll send you off to a cardiologist, you know, for all these sort of tests and, you know, the echo stress test and all this sort of stuff where they stress your heart and see what it performs under stress, and they give you like a calcium score, which is another test you do where they scan your heart. Because we've all got a weakness in our body to our genes or something going on. Now, despite my great, terrible history of heart disease in the family, the worst history because it's everyone. Now, my older sister, she doesn't have heart problems, thank goodness, and she's relatively young and a woman. But all of them, you know, parents, grandparents, all of them.
Wow.
And I had a test and my calcium score was 0. So not even the start of heart disease.
Wow.
So does it run in the family or does it, you know?
That's
so
right.
It's like, so even if you've got a bad family history of something, it doesn't mean you will get it. Now, there are genetic conditions that we have to talk about which are a little sadder.
Yes.
That means that if you are positive for that gene, that usually means always means you're going to get
There's
this
nothing
disease.
you can do.
Huntington's the one that I thought of earlier, which is a disease that you get where you breaks down your neurons in your brain. Terrible disease.
Awful disease.
Awful disease. And that's genetically programmed. So that's a different one.
Yeah.
So like if you've got that in your family, but even then, do you test for that?
Well, that's right. I mean, it's only going to tell you that you're going to get it. So do you just I don't know, live your life, and wait to get it, or?
I guess it comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
Like, let's say there's a 30-year-old, usually women, but it can happen in men, but usually women. Let's say a 30-year-old woman, you know, her mum might have had it and has since passed away. They don't live very long, unfortunately. Does she get the test to find out whether she's negative or positive?
Yeah.
Because remember, she got one of the X chromosomes from the woman, the mum, and the other X from the dad. Because if you're a woman, you've got two X's, as we talked about before. So she could have, she says it's like a 50% chance of having this Huntington's thing. So very scary, isn't it?
It is.
So what do you do? I mean, it's like there's no answer, is there?
There is no answer.
I think it comes down to the individual.
Yeah, I think. And I think a lot of it, not so much things with, say, things like Huntington's, of course, but I think mindset comes into play a lot in, you know, what we think we create, to some believe, to a certain degree. So are we going to think ourselves into getting that condition? Now, I tried to find with this little story that I told you yesterday, I tried to find the study on it or some of the reference to it. I couldn't find it, but I'm still going to tell the story. But just bear in mind, I don't have a reference to it, but I have heard this story before. Right. But it's just basically a good example of how powerful our mind is. So there was two Asian men. They were identical twins. Right. And they went to, this was, I think, it would have been back in the 60s.
So identical twins means they've got the same genetic code.
That's right.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same, yeah. Because funnily enough, as I was going to say before, when I had my ancestry genetic testing, my brother had it as well. We didn't have the same genetic makeup because we're not identical twins. No. So there you go. Ours was a little bit different because we might take more from one parent and he might take more from the other. So even though we're brothers and sister, we're still a little bit genetically.
Your brother from your father got the Y chromosome and you got the X from your dad.
That's right, yeah. So quite different. So these are identical twin males.
Yep.
They just went for their normal health checks, had their blood tests, that type of thing. One of them had cancer. One of them didn't. So they went back and told one of the twins that you have cancer. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry, you know, you're just going to have to live your life. The other one was told he had a clear bill of health. Went on, lived their lives. The one with cancer ended up dying a few years later, I think, and the other twin lived to an old age. What they actually found out is that they mixed up their tests. So the one that had the cancer was actually the one that lived till his old age, and the one that died of cancer didn't actually have cancer.
Jeez.
So that's a really good example of how powerful your mind can be into creating something. So would that come into play if you're doing genetic testing, possibly, like we were saying earlier? If you know you've got that gene, that would you then, you know, convince yourself out of fear or whatever it is that you're going to get that's going to express it as that disease. So it's very interesting, isn't it? You could go down a rabbit hole with this.
The only twin study I know that was kind of fun was an astronaut study where one of these twins was an astronaut and was circling the Earth for 6 months or something, and so they tested the genes on aging, because as you go faster, time slows down. I don't know if you guys know general relativity.
Yeah, I don't know. A little bit.
But the faster something goes, the time is relatively slower for them. So at the speed of light, which is the fastest you can go in the universe, time stops. Think of time as the fourth dimension. So as speed goes up, time goes down. It's an inverse relationship. So he was going very, very, very fast, circling the Earth, and so time was going slower for him. And that's why that's general relativity. This is not a science fiction thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know from atomic clocks in the 70s where they put one on a plane, a jet plane, it'd fly around the world a few times and it would slow down the time on the atomic clock. Yeah. So, you know, we know that this happens, but they've put...
If we put one of them in our room, an atomic clock, and wake up the next day, we're younger. Should we find?
Atomic clocks only tell the
time.
You've got to drive really, really, really fast to slow time down.
Well, we can't do that.
But
and I don't have an atomic plane, so probably
no. But even backwards. If you walking across this room, for you, time is minusculely slower.
Oh, yeah. So the faster I walk, the younger I'll be.
Well, the less you'll age.
Okay.
Because time goes slower as you go faster.
Okay.
Now, it's so insignificantly small. But, you know, the satellites that go around there that tells the time on my phone here, it's like, you know, it's 11:34 right now. And that means that the GPS, but the time on the GPS has to be set faster because it's going faster relative to Earth. So it has to speed it so the time is set faster up there to match the time on the Earth.
There you go.
So if you want to slow time down, no matter what genes you are.
Just go fast.
Go fast.
Okay.
Go fast everywhere.
All right. Done.
But you'll probably crash in your car and die sooner.
Yeah, so don't do that.
So don't do that. That's probably the bad idea.
Just do it in a safe way.
You do it in a safe way.
Yeah.
Go for a run.
Go on a rocket ship or something.
Yeah, rocket ship. That's safe. It's very safe.
If you know what's his face.
Strap yourself to massive explosive hydrogen explosion, controlled explosion under your ass. That's the
right.
best way to slow. That's safest way to.
There you go.
Just go on Elon Musk's rocket.
That's his name. Elon Musk. I was trying to think of his name.
Think of a richest man.
The Tesla guy. You know the Tesla
guy. Yeah.
I know. I'm so up with all the current events.
He's a great guy. I think he's 54. He's my age. And we've got about the same bank account, him and I.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, I think he's worth 200 billion or some number that you just go, what?
You can't even. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Now,
but is he happy, Steve? Really?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Probably is.
Probably is.
He's probably super happy.
Yeah.
Jesus, making rockets all day and then hot cars that go fast and, what a good life.
Yeah, no.
Now he owns Twitter.
He does own Twitter now. Yeah, that's right.
You can sell the world to whatever.
Yeah.
And he owns the damn platform. He can't get kicked off it.
I can't get kicked off for putting in a bad tweet.
I've been kicked off Facebook a few times.
Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Steve.
I've said some terrible things.
Oh,
yeah.
I got kicked off Instagram.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't know you could.
No, yeah. Apparently you can.
No, I don't know. We're recording, but what did you post?
Well, I didn't post anything bad. I didn't give them my birth date. This popped out of nowhere. You had to give him confirm you're over 13 or 12 or something to be able to use Instagram. Yeah. It had never come up before, so I thought it was a scam. So I just put, I'm 100. And they came back and said, you can't be 100. And I went, okay, well, I'm 0. And they said, you have to put in an actual birth date. And I'm thinking, this is a scam.
Yeah.
So then, no, so they shut me down.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I didn't give them my birth date.
Typical woman never tells her age.
She didn't tell my age. Yeah,
you should have said you were 21 or something.
Yeah, that was the end of that. So,
I didn't know that.
Yes, no, but not for anything controversial. I haven't done any controversial posts or anything like that.
But let's say I'm an athlete.
Yes.
Which I am, of course. You know C-Bum, you've seen that bodybuilder?
I have seen, yes.
Yeah, I look like him with my clothes
Definitely,
on.
Yes, I can, totally.
Yeah. Okay. So is there a way to see what sports I'd be good at?
Yes, so that leads into the question, is there any positive sort of reasons to get DNA testing, genetic testing? Yes, there is, because basically genetic testing has come a long way. Yeah. So back in the day, it would cost you a lot of money and it can take up to a month to map your genome. Now, because of technology and the new testing and everything that's out there, it's much cheaper and you can do it in a day.
Wow.
So there's a lot at hand and there's a lot of new testing that's come out for naturopaths and practitioners, GPs, that sort of thing. That's very specific testing. So you can test for things like what is the best diet for you based on your genetics.
Wow.
So that can be a really good one for people who may be struggling
like you.
That I'm struggling to lose weight.
No. I didn't know that. When that plays back, you'll see that I didn't know you were going to say that. Struggling to lose weight. You're as lean as.
Oh, wow. Right in the back. You got me right in the back. Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Because you got chubby cheeks. That's about
I know. Apparently I've got chubby cheeks as well, I was told. Yeah. So Steve just really likes to pump me up, like my confidence.
Right. It's a compliment.
Yeah. Yes. No, apparently I have chubby cheeks, which I didn't realise, but now I'm very conscious of it. So awesome. Yeah. No. So, yes, but for histamines, definitely that is one. But if you have trouble losing
Nothing
weight.
about your weight. I wasn't looking. Right. I'm looking just there at you above.
Right. Yes, and performance. So if you're perhaps an athlete and you want to increase your, that's what I was going to say, Steve. Yeah. Definitely. Then you could look at genetic testing as to what is the best exercise for you as far as performance goes. If you want to build muscle, what's the best way to do that for your genetics? So I think they're really interesting tests that are coming out now. And I have one here. So I don't know if I should put the brand name up, but the lab. But this one here, they do lots of different testing. So this one's for performance. Yeah. So it'll go through all your genes and it'll tell you what, as I said, what's the best type of exercise, intensity, whether you do more, power type exercise, more endurance type exercise, things like that. So that can be a really, I think, positive genetic test to do if you're looking at improving your performance or your weight, or there's other ones on skin. There's quite a few different ones that they can actually pull out and look at specific to you. So I think that they're quite good tests to do, and they're not going to go into disease states and or propensity towards disease and things like that. So you don't have to worry about that. They're purely based on what you're interested in as far as what goal you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. So we've done podcasts on blood types, and that's genes, genetically controlled.
Yeah.
But this is fascinating because there are some people who are really good at some sports and crap at others. Yeah. And, yes, it's a lot of it in your head, but, Usain Bolt, for example, the fastest man on the earth, he's a genetic gift to running. Yes. I don't know if there's many other people that could train like that and be that fast. Just genetically, they wouldn't get there. And it's quite interesting because, we know African men are very fast runners. They're not so good at swimming. So there's certain genes that can do that. But this is a great way because, it might say on this genetic testing that I'm more predisposed to lighter weights more often. Just making this up. Or some type of sport like that where it's a more of an endurance-based sport. I'm not, by the way. I'm not very good at endurance, but I'm a sprinter. I joined a running club. Shit at the distance shit. But when we come to the sprints, I'd mostly win them. It was weird. They'd never ran before, in this, because I got into it because my arthritis cleared up.
There you go.
So I could run again. Hey. So it was a bit of a novelty. And I still love running to this very day, but I'm not good at it.
No, I think people who run are crazy.
We are.
I just think, yeah.
It's the dumbest idea.
The only time I remember running if someone's trying to kill me.
Yeah. Well, you line up at the marathon and the first story they tell you is about the first marathon that was ever run. Yeah. The guy died.
Oh, great.
And so here we are standing on the front line about to run a marathon, the same distance with this one guy died. Awesome. He was running back to marathon to tell, because marathon's a place in Greece, that someone was invading and it was 26.3 miles. It told the story.
Oh, is that how marathon came?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And they ran back there and he told them something and then died because he was exhaustion or heat stroke, whatever. Okay. So the year after, there's some of his mates, because he saved the war or whatever, they ran.
So let's do the same thing.
Yeah, let's do the same thing, but in honour of the guy. And so that's where the marathon was born. Yeah, I don't know. Look, there's more to it than that. Yeah. But it's such a dumb event to run, 42.2 kilometres. It's horrendous. It's painful. It's stupid, but thousands of people do it. And some people are very good at it and some people aren't.
Yeah. So there you go. So perhaps they've got that genome where they're more endurance based. So I can't run. I trained myself to run 5 kilometres once, and I thought if I run 5 kilometres, that's it. I will never have to do it again. Did it, never done it again. Yeah. I can do any sport, very active, used to be very fit, but I will not run. Oh, but I love to lift weight. So perhaps my genome type is more the power side of it, more than the endurance.
Absolutely. Because, I like running. I like it. I enjoy it. I'm going for a run tomorrow morning. But I was in a running club. We did a 500-kilometre race over 3 days. Running team of us.
500 kilometres over 3 days. Yeah. Wow.
We ran from Brisbane at Griffith Uni. We ran out through Warwick and Toowoomba and then back to Ipswich.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was a charity. We raised $37,000 about 15 years ago.
Was that the one where you wore the dress? Did you wear a dress?
Yeah, I wore a dress.
That's right.
Thanks for reminding. Thanks for reminding everyone like that too. And we did. I wore a dress too. It's the only time I've ever worn a dress, by the way.
only documented time anyway.
Apart from the average Saturday night,
that's right.
You just want to look good. It's so nice.
But yes, this is something that can be really beneficial for people. Yeah, so the genetic testing has come a long way.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, a lot of things as a naturopath that I would look at if someone came to me who is an athlete. And I have some athletes as clients and things that maybe want to look more into that type of thing.
And get more out of their training.
Yeah.
Like you love the gym. I go to the gym because it's there and it's good for me, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
And yet this running thing in my brain, it just seems to be an easier thing for me to be motivated for.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you can, but then let's say, I come back and I say, I've got to lift heavy weights. I could then know that would be the best for my genetic makeup.
That's right.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
Because it changes your training then.
Yeah.
So genes, we've sort of said, don't get them tested, and then we've said get them tested. And you know, you could do like doing that comp test here, where it could help you explain why you're a certain way, or you get an AS disease like me, ankylosing spondylitis, or why you've got stress in your life, because COMT is associated with mental health. So it can explain people like why. I mean, when I found out I had AS, it was more of a relief than a curse, because I knew something was wrong with me. It's like, oh my God, you know, and I've got genetically high levels of a chemical in my brain that causes vasodilation, and you get, you know, cluster headaches every now and again. It's completely managed and it's all fine. But it's great to know what's going on inside your body.
It is. Yeah.
Because if you're, you know, like, you know, I could have been making this back thing up because it was really sore in the morning, couldn't walk and everything, and then by the afternoon it'd feel better. And that's AS. Yeah. Young men get it, the age of 20. It's like it was so many light bulbs went off. So genetic testing, you know, you could find out why you love the gym, or why you got this disease, or if you're at a risk of a disease. There's a lot to it, but how far do you go?
Well, that's it. I mean, I see a lot of clients have mold illness, which is becoming a huge health area now, a problem now as well. And I can look at their genes as to whether they can actually break down mold in their body. Yeah. And if they can't, then that's somebody that we need to make sure that we help detoxify them very well, and that they try and stay away from those moldy areas as much as possible, because for them, that's not a good environment to be in.
Exactly. And you know, just use our simple example. I could sit here and eat a bowl of nuts in front of you quite happily. Yeah. And you eat the same food, and it would react with you very badly. That's right. Because of your genes. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of benefits to genetic testing. It's just what sort of testing you're doing. So, you know, I look at a lot of positives. What I do in clinic is a lot of this sort of genetic testing, but it's very different than looking at the disease, you know, cancer propensity and things like that. I don't do a lot of that sort of thing.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So, God, we could go on for hours, but we have to. I think we've run out of time, so we should sort of call
wrap it up. But yes, just something food for thought for people if they're looking at that sort of thing, or if they have, you know, illnesses that perhaps they're not getting any progress in no matter what they're doing, then maybe genetic testing could be something to look at.
Incredible. Wow. Well, this has been amazing, and, you know, researching this was so much fun.
It has been.
But we'll be back next week with more.
We will. I mean, if anyone has any topics that they want us to talk about, they want to send in, so we can have a look at that.
Give us ideas.
Chat on things that you might want to hear more on.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you don't ask me questions about when I wore that dress that once running.
No, that'll be,
Anything else?
We'll talk about that.
All right, well, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.